Hey guys, Some Gamer Dude here. Should apologise for the lack of content. Just been really busy and really sick. Nearly healed up fully, and I think I have a better idea of what content I want to produce for this channel and how frequently I want to post stuff. Anyway, Curse of the Frozen Casket and the starter decks have come out already. Grim is gone, Reflector's banned, whole new format to explore. Though I think people will peg it out pretty fast. The format currently only has about 600 cards, and around 450 of those are pretty well pegged. So I spent my day, that'd be yesterday, with my mates. Oz Comic Con was on, so no serious stuff. Out of CFC, I have invested in Elves, Vampires, Wukong, Yogg, and Charlotte. They're the things I was interested in. Only got around to playing Elves and Charlotte yesterday. Elves were a pleasant surprise. Played the deck straight, operated well, and was enjoyable. Small mods, and I'm pretty darn satisfied. I played a little bit of Christie Elves because I started in SKL, but I went back and bought some of the Grim stuff I wanted. Played a little bit of Christie Elves. It was enjoyable, but like Vampires, it had its day in its limelight and was not really playable by the time I got to it. Anyway, Charlotte turned out very well so far. Yet to properly refine it, but it's good. Essentially took my Gil Lapis deck and modded it by taking out the Gil Lapis specific stuff. It just feels like it's missing some aggro to close games right now. I might have gone a wee bit overboard when I talked about it before in regards to power. She's very, very good, but not overbearingly so. I actually had a really funny game with a mate. He was using Charlotte as well. He used High Speed Dash to flip her back and then flipped her again. And because we're both playing stall-out games, and I was playing black-blue, and he was playing white-red-blue with a little dash of green. It was a 4-color deck. What happened was, I won because I could stall the game, and he had drawn 5 cards twice and decked out. Yep, that was funny. Anyway, speaking of Charlotte and things being overbearing, I was right on one thing. There is one card here that is way too strong, and I've already talked about it. Yep, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic. I wasn't wrong about the card. It's incredibly overpowered, if not broken. I'm not going to mince words. It costs too little, does too much, and has no nuance about it. You cast it, you win a battle. It's that simple. You can even use a multitude of control cards to just straight up kill something if you don't have a 5/5 for whatever reason, or you really need something to hit. Lightning Strike, Hasta, Unseen Forces, Artemis's Bow, Demon Flame, stuff like that. All that's comboing cards though, so it's not really the biggest deal. And for what it actually does as an actual card, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic is not bad per se. It's the rest of the card. It's its cost and Remnant. Those break it. It costs nearly next to nothing, and it happens far more times per game than it really has any right to do. It can swing games by itself just because it happens so many times. Cost should be dictated by the card. This doesn't really have that much of a cost. If anything, it's just blue cost. 1. Let's just compare it to another card. Let's look at another card that's really good, but it is a fantastic example of how cards can do a lot of things, but be costed appropriately, especially in comparison to other things. Here is Space Time Anomaly. We all know this card. It's amazing. For UB, reduce Resonator or J-Ruler by 5/5, draw a card. It also has Remnant. That's a whole lot. I've had it argued to me by a friend it does too much, but it does an appropriate amount for the cost. Compared to Dark Purge, for B1, a significantly lower cost as Hierarchy does go color with void, then hard color costs, then mixed costs, in that order being progressively better. It just doesn't do as much because it only lowers by 5/5. I for a while thought it didn't do J-Rulers, but nope, it does J-Rulers. So the Dark Purge reduces by more slightly. It's that little 100 does have its uses due to 6/6 running rampant, and it's much easier to cast. Now, of course, easier cast is a bit subjective. 10 stones, 4 sources of blue, providing that you're running just 6 basic black for dual blue. Each stone that pops up has a 40% chance of being blue. It's not hard. However, managing the sources of specific colours can trip you up. But anyway, my point was, Space-Time Anomaly does do a lot, as it cantrips that tacked on draw is called cantrip in Magic. And those aren't terribly common in Force of Will, And it has Remnant, which ends up an overall +2 due to the Remnant floating and cantrip, but again, the cost makes up for it. It's probably more an argument that mana fixing in Force of Will is just too damn easy because of how the Magic Stone deck works. Just something that happens. Now, Charlotte's Water Transformation Magic doesn't have something else to compare it to in Force of Will. There isn't anything like it in any cluster. Believe me, I looked over all 4. That would make life a bit tough if Force of Will didn't blatantly steal, homage, appropriate, what have you. Whatever term you want to use for a lot of Force of Will cards and mechanics being magic cards or modern magic cards. Transformation Magic is no different. Magic has about 6 cards to do the whole turn into something else concept. Some of these cards aren't particularly relevant to what we have. Tusks and Dance can be used defensively, while Transformation really can't. Snake Form has hybrid cost and cantrips. Turn and Overnize both make 0 attack and have other little quirks. So our closest comparison is Turn to Frog. Does all the same stuff, but it also changes colours, but that's not particularly relevant for Force of Will. Well, actually, it doesn't do all the same stuff because it doesn't have Remnant. It also costs you 1. Yes, it costs 1 more, and strictly speaking, does less. But in the grand scheme of things, what their actual effect on a battle is the exact same. It turns something into a 1-drop, more or less. We'll talk about 1-drops later on. That's interesting. Because there's a little bit of power creep in Force of Will that I'm not sure it's particularly bad, but there's some things in the game that need to be still fixed to accommodate it, because the game is probably going to go way too fast because some things... I'll do a video on that later. I think I got most of the script prepared for it anyway. Anyway, back to topic. For what Charlotte's Water Transformation does, it definitely has to be a 3 converted cost, or at the very least, a hard or dual cost. UU or UW, something like that. If we tried to bring it upwards to the cost, well, I'd probably make it about 6/6. Remnant, probably 7/7. Not completely sound, as again, Force of Will has those screwed up numbers due to just things, and we'll talk about it. There is also the option to have some specific restrictions on it to accommodate the sheer power of the card. There's a card in Force of Will called Rabbit Kick. It's a perfect example of card doing a lot and having a restriction to facilitate that. It's a standard U1 bounce. That's, as I said, standard cost for that. However, if you have a Rare Rabbit out, one of my favourite races, by the way, because they go bounce, and it works well with Valentina, my favourite ruler. Anyway, if you have a Rare Rabbit out, bounces 2. Make the effect narrower to account to it for what it does. I like that. Charlotte's Water Transformation could have been a lot less cringeworthy had it been narrow like that. Is Transformation Magic or Meta Warper like Reflect was, though? No, that's definitely not the case. It doesn't make mediocre decks good or good decks amazing. It's closer in comparison to Lancelot, except even worse. Lancelot is dictated by the decks and, to a great extent, format's ability to make Lancelot dominate the board until he's disposed of. Currently, he's not terribly bad. There isn't any cheap and easy way of making him 10 attack, and the cards that cost something such as Pandora's Mark of Hope that do make him 10 reasonably easily, but again, cost, don't have additional effects such as Amino Habakiri to add to the aggro. He's still very strong, but he's arguably not the problem anymore. This is because he's also appropriately costed for the current power curve. Requires other cards that cost, and the cards that make him overly oppressive don't exist in the format anymore. He's not too fast, he doesn't do too much. Charlotte's Water Transformation doesn't strictly require anything. It's just a combat trick, but with flashback and a low cost to make it a problem. It will most definitely define combat tricks for the format, and while other things have to compare to them in terms of capabilities and value, they won't. Just like things aren't comparing to a space-time anomaly right now. Maybe this was the actual plan. Improved Blue's stance by replacing the long-gone counterspells that went to green with combat tricks that have Remnant. It still doesn't make Water Transformation sit right in my books. Again, Anomaly has its cost and comparisons to take into account for what it does. Transformation Magic doesn't. I don't think it'll be banned. It won't be banned. No company likes admitting they made a problem, and remember how long it took till Reflect Refrain got banned. So I recommend getting used to it. Maybe playing Dark Alice, as she can remove it from the hand as, well, she plays things to remove from the hand, as well as remove from the discard by herself. It gets around it. Also gets around Space Time Anomaly. You could also play it yourself, because again, it is broken, and Black Blue is very, very good right now. I play Black Blue, and I play it because it is good. It's not like I'm not going to recognize it is too good though. And it is a solid 3 of in any deck. Makes people salty. But again, I don't think it was a good design, especially with Jordan's completely asinine answer to why it's so powerful. Charlotte's got 400 attack. That's not good reasoning. That's just like pointing something out. And I'm like, so why doesn't it cost more? And my cat needs me. But anyway, I think it will define the game for quite some time. Blue will come up most because its combat tricks are a little too good in a lot of ways, at least in comparison to other things. This has been Some Gamer Dude. I'm planning to do 1 video a week now, so I'll see you guys next week.